Story 1. In programming, we use an integer value for time called an epoch timestamp. It represents milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. I got the epoch timestamp for my son's moment of birth tattooed on my chest. Story 2. My almost completed sleeve is based on my favorite book series and characters, the Discworld. I have added a picture. It has been a while since I have done this, so I hope it works. Story 3. I have always wanted a homunculus tattoo from Full Metal Alchemist. I do not have any and have never gotten one, but I think it is a cool, nerdy tattoo. There is no meaning behind it for me. I just like it. Story 4. Three-dot triangle from when I worked in a radiation oncology center. Right hand behind thumb. Same pattern they use to target tumors with the linear accelerator. Reminds me when I shake hands that I have no clue what the other person is going through. Story 5. I plan on changing my Harley-Davidson skull into Darth Vader given the artist, time, and money. Then likely more Star Wars tattoos. I am not sure how nerdy Star Wars is to people, but I love it. Story 6. Is this nerdy? I like to work on vintage military radio equipment, and many manuals have empty pages with the phrase "this space intentionally left blank" at the top or bottom of the page. I have that as a tattoo, and I thought the idea was also funny, since a tattoo is not a blank space. Story 7. I have one with musical notation showing when my instrument enters with the melody partway into the opening movement. It is my favorite piece to play. Story 8. I have linework tattoos of the origami unicorn from Blade Runner and the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Story 9. I have a tattoo of color bars on my right shoulder blade from working in television for 30 years. It now looks like a smeared pride flag that is slightly incorrect. Story 10. A tattoo of the logo of the Brotherhood of Steel from Fallout 1 year before the series became a hit. On my left thigh. Story 11. This person had the chemical structure of caffeine on their arm. It was really cool. Also, the person who tattooed the mark of the outsider from Dishonored on their hand. I liked both of them. Story 12. I got a really impressive tattoo of Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings. Twin Towers tattooed on my calves. I sometimes regret it because it was very expensive, but it is worth it when I get to show it off during casual Fridays. Story 13. My only tattoo is the chemical structure of a beautiful molecule called benzene. Why? Because I am a chemist. Story 14. When I finished my computer science degree, I got "Hello World" tattooed on my right arm. I also have a Raspberry Pi tattoo and a Fibonacci spiral. Story 15. Probably my hippocampus tattoo. No, I did not get a tattoo of the hippocampus structure that's part of the human brain. Every time I tell someone that I have a hippocampus tattoo, they immediately think of the brain, but in reality, I am just a nerd for mythology and the ocean. Story 16. The only tattoo I have is on my large scar from when my cancerous tumor was removed. It goes across my stomach and looks like a hill, so I got a tattoo of a person riding a roller coaster cart down it. Story 17. I have a Star Wars quote directly above my parts. Shortly after getting it, it became slang for a transgender person, which I am not. It was a choice between that or, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" And it was very painful, so I am glad I chose a short quote. Story 18. A week ago, I got all 7 periods of the periodic table of elements tattooed on my left arm, pinning the lanthanides and actinides next session. This is my first tattoo, and it took approximately 9 hours to rough in. Story 19. I have 3 heraldic devices from J.R.R. Tolkien's elves as depicted in the Silmarillion, surrounding the 2 trees from the same history. Story 20. So I fell in love with physics in school and thought how fitting it would be to get a tattoo of Maxwell's equations for electromagnetic waves, but only visible using a specific electromagnetic wavelength. Summary. Equations of light only seen in ultraviolet light. Story 21. I've got a few. The Misty Mountain in Tolkien-esque illustration style. Gandalf's rune. A Nazgul on horseback. The Jedi logo. Hey Hey from Moana. A couple of stormtroopers. Story 22. The Superman symbol in purple and silver with flames coming out of the top has long since been removed. Story 23. The One Ring inscription. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all and in the darkness bind them. Story 24. Fear is the mind killer. It actually helped me a lot with my fear of failure, which always paralyzed me into doing nothing. Since I got the tattoo, I passed my driving test the first time and bought the small business where I worked. I am still being held back in life, but I am screaming a little less hysterically. Story 25. I have the dark blue undertale heart on my shoulder with the phrase, "You're filled with integrity." I plan to get 2 anklet tattoos. One will feature logos of video games I enjoy. The other will have console logos from my favorite consoles with Player One, because it will be a sibling tattoo. Story 26. I have a tattoo of a Bobo MB from the Mario games on my right wrist. It only cost me $13 and it is easily my favorite tattoo. Story 27. I haven't gotten any more tattoos other than the tiny wrist one. But what constitutes being nerdy? For example, if I got a Harry Potter tattoo? Story 28. I have not gotten any yet, but I do have one planned for my right calf. A giant dub, also known as the sock knife that people wearing kilts carry. Story 29. I have a Harley Quinn symbol, Jason Voorhees' demon cat, and a bloody gur from Invader Zim. So far, many more to go. Story 30. My friend has a Vulcan symbol down the back of her legs. I'm pretty sure it says, "You are, and always have been my friend," or whatever the quote is. I have a Chinese dragon and phoenix on my upper arm, representing my beliefs in duality and balance. Story 31. I have a floral piece with negative space of an X-Wing, the Rebel Alliance symbol, and the Millennium Falcon. Story 32. Not mine but a friend has the following. A Star Trek communicator, Rebel and Alliance symbols, the Dungeons and Dragons ampersand, a Displacer beast, a Beholder, the Lord of the Rings map with the script in blacklight reactive ink, a full set of dice as a stomach rocker, Boldly Go across his toes, and my personal favorite, the Mystery Science Theater 3000 silhouette as a tramp stamp with them pointing at the Lord of the Rings map. He is one of my favorite people and has the best nerd tattoo collection. Story 33. I have the Super Mario World version of Super Mario with a cape, jumping and hitting a question block. I want to do more nerd stuff, but I don't know where to place it. Story 34. I have the line symbols for earth, air, fire, and water from the fifth element tattooed on my shoulder. Story 35. I haven't gotten it yet, but I am going to get, in response, tattooed on the inside of my right pointer finger. When you play Magic, the Gathering, and want to disrupt something that someone has done, you say, "in response." It is basically a meme. Once I get it, I will be able to just hold up my finger and get a few laughs. Story 36. It's a tie. The sarcophagus engraving of King Pacal the Great of the Mayan Empire. The logo for Buckaroo Banzai's Oscillation Overthruster. Story 37. I have a Ween tattoo, a time and relative dimension in Space Machine, and a Sunburst chapter heading from the Wheel of Time books. So, take your pick, I guess. Story 38. As a manga reader, I have the Berserk brand of Sacrifice and the Dragon Slayer, and as a comics reader, I have the Batman symbol. Story 39. I will hopefully be getting one later this year. That is a diagram of how to write my favorite form of poetry. Story 40. I do not have any tattoos, but I have been thinking about getting a Kefri Gold Morning tattoo from the web serial Worm. Story 41. I have a Sylveon, Vaporeon, and Meadow Vivillon tattooed on me. I am planning on getting all the other EV evolutions over time. Story 42. I took this photo of a cat graffiti doodle from the urinal of a cafe I visit often. My wife works at a tattoo studio, and on my birthday in February, I went to the shop to hang out. One of the other artists asked what I wanted for my birthday tattoo. I replied with this. Story 43. My left thigh is covered with tattoos of Halloween sticker designs from the 1980s. I search blogs for stickers and have them inked. Story 44. I have a tattoo of the icon for Avengers Shield, an ability of tank paladins in World of Warcraft. This is my side of a couple's tattoo. My wife has one of the Healing Touch icon, a druid ability. We were a tank healer combination when we dated. Story 45. I have a villain sleeve on my right arm featuring all my favorite bad guys. It ranges from Darkseid, Magneto, Gore, Green Goblin, Mr. Sinister, Darth Maul, to Shredder. The Gore tattoo was done well before that very bad movie. Story 46. I have Leona's sword and shield tattooed on me in memory of a friend who would main her in the early days of League of Legends. Story 47. Courage is found in unlikely places. Be of good hope, written in Elvish on my lower tummy. Gandalf has great advice. Story 48. I converted Morse code into a diagonal and vertical line sequence, and then got "Never fail to be kind" Doctor Who quote, written in my own Morse code version. It is integrated into a cyberpunk circuit diagram tattoo around my lower arm that links to and also surrounds an Outer Planets Alliance logo on my upper arm. Next session, I am getting more Morse code to say, the more you share, the more your bowl will be plentiful. Outer Planets Alliance Belter idiom. The circuit diagram has ultraviolet reactive ink so it glows under black light. Story 49. It's currently my only tattoo. A shoulder piece of a magic circle containing the symbols of the 9 spheres from Mage. The Ascension. It commemorates a 5-year-long game my friends and I played years ago. Story 50. I have the airplane logo from the movie Airplane. It is modified to have my late friend's initials and 42 as a flight number. Story 51. The Constitution class USS Defiant NCC 1764 on my forearm. I want to get the Defiant class Defiant on the other side when I have more money. Story 52. My buddy and I got brother tattoos of the neon umbrellas from Blade Runner. I have only had one person guess it. It is right next to my Rebel Alliance logo with Rebel Scum under it, so it does not get much attention anyway. Another nerdy tattoo is the Rebel Scum one. I spend a lot of time with the autistic community when in public with short sleeves. Story 53. Where do I start? My first tattoo was 2.5 pixel hearts from The Legend of Zelda under my clavicle. I have the Triforce on the back of my hand in green, blue, red, and purple rupees on my fingers, a Master Sword, and Navi from The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time. My left arm will be a full Legend of Zelda sleeve someday. I have the Star Wars Rebel Alliance symbol and a Mario Kart blue shell. My favorite character from Animal Crossing, New Leaf Fauna, is tattooed as well. I have 2 EV evolutions, Flareon and Espion, on my right leg. I also have a Studio Ghibli sleeve on my left lower leg. Oh, I almost forgot. The hut from Evil Dead, colorful and cute. That is all the nerdy tattoos so far. Story 54. Leg sleeve based on A Song of Ice and Fire Book 3. In the middle of it, Season 3 of Game of Thrones came out, and my significant other gifted me the Hand of the King pin. It fit perfectly into an empty space in the original design, so now I have both the books and the series represented on my leg at their strongest point. If George R.R. Martin ever finishes his series, I want to have a final tattoo of the victors of the series in the Story 55. How about my massive Zelda Ocarina of Time calf piece? I wanted an Ocarina of Time tattoo for a long time and agonized over what image to get for years before deciding on my favorite piece of art from the official strategy guide. My tattoo artist did an amazing job transcribing it. It fits the space perfectly and is aging beautifully. Story 56. All my tattoos are really nerdy, so it is hard to say which is the nerdiest. I guess just because of the size of it, the Hobbit forearm sleeve. But I have also got 3 Futurama tattoos and a Dungeons and Dragons tattoo. Story 57. I have a Kirby on a warp star and a very stressed out Psyduck. All my other tattoos are memorials. Story 58. I am a huge Legend of Zelda fan and have an entire sleeve of my favorite characters from my favorite games in the series. I paid a decent amount of money for a good artist to do it, and it has held up really well over the years. Story 59. Guess my Nordic rune is kind of nerdy. And no, it is not meant to be any kind of hate symbol. It stands for new beginnings. Story 60. One of the contestants on LEGO Masters Australia this year has a line of squares running up her arm. They are 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. It is literally a yardstick that she can use to measure. Very nerdy. I always wanted to get our conversion chart from the frame shop tattooed on me. Fractions to decimals for the most common mat width we used. Talking to the client and assembly was always in fractions, but inputting and ordering was in decimal. We did it a lot. Story 61. Grin in the face of demons. This is my nerdiest tattoo. It is also my only tattoo, but that is beside the point. Story 62. Mine is partially my homage to the 1980s nerd and geek culture. I have a cassette tape, a Care Bear, and a glittery Mickey Mouse lollipop, among others. Story 63. I've got some circular Gallifreyan on my right arm that translates as, "What would the doctor do?" Story 64. Planning a video game mosaic of my favorite games in my life. Until then, my tattoo of the guitar I customized in honor of Thick 44 of Neebs Gaming, which I then had autographed by the whole crew. Story 65. I am a nerd, and my tattoo is assumed to be for nerdy things, but its intent was more nihilistic. I have a barcode on the back of my neck. I got it when the television show Dark Angel and the first few Hitman games were coming out. I got it as more of an "I'm human meat" kind of statement. While there are some similarities in the root idea, I had it for 7 or 8 years before the show and games came out. Story 66. I have a couple of dice tattooed on my stomach and the words, "Never tell me the odds" around them. I work in data science. Story 67. My best friend and I deliberated for years on which beetle species to tattoo on ourselves. We finally decided, so I have a very specific beetle species on my arm, and she has a matching one. Before anyone asks, no, it is not a scarab or rhinoceros beetle. It is much more obscure than that, but I cannot divulge because it would definitely reveal my identity. Story 68. All my tattoos are from video games. My two favorites are Sir Radzig's sword from Kingdom Come, Deliverance on the left side of my neck just behind the ear, and around my wrist I have a Witcher tattoo. Story 69. I have a tattoo of the X-Men's secret mutant language that only they can speak, so probably that one. Story 70. I have the portal logo on my body. The stick figure enters through the blue portal on my left leg and exits through the orange portal on the right side of my chest. Story 71. I have multiple Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy tattoos, a Big Daddy and Little Sister from BioShock, and a Hypnotoad. Story 72. So far, I am working on my fandom sleeve. Currently, I have Haku in dragon form from Spirited Away, Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro, Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle, Alaster from Hazbin Hotel, Bulbasaur from Pokemon, Courage from Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Starfruit from Kingdom Hearts. I have many plans to add fandoms like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Bleach, My Hero Academia, Labyrinth, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and more. Story 73. No ink on my skin, but if I were to get one, it would probably be the 3 virtues from Bionicle over my heart. Story 74. I have the Galactic Empire symbol and the Deathly Hallows below it on my left arm. I plan to have a full nerd motif sleeve. Story 75. I have the 7 Lantern Corps symbols down my left forearm, besides representing one of my favorite comic runs of all time. It is also a discreet rainbow tattoo and symbolizes me always wearing my emotions on my sleeve. Story 76. Chi, a great way to spell the life force chi in Scrabble, especially if you can hit a triple, but stylized as an element of the periodic table. Story 77. I have 2 large Fallout pieces, one of Hancock and one of Nick Valentine. I also have a Deadpool tattoo on my arm. Story 78. A pixelated Space Invader tattoo on the back of my thigh, partly because I love the game and it was probably the first game I ever played, but mostly because my wife wanted me to get a tattoo for her. If I was in a bad mood, she would get extra clingy. I would ask her to stop invading my space. She was being a space invader, so I got a tattoo for her. She wasn't sure if she absolutely hated it or loved that I got something permanent for her. It's still one of my favorites. Story 79. I have the You Have Lost Karma Pip-Boy logo from Fallout, the one with the devil horns and pitchfork. Next, I am getting the You Have Gained Karma one. Story 80. I have the logo for Rush's 2112 album and the album cover lettering for Grace Under Pressure. I have Iron Maiden's Eddie from the Powerslave album, Dread Pirate Robert's sword with a banner that says, "As You Wish," Snaggletooth the Iron Maiden logo, Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation emptying the toilet. The samurai logo from Cyberpunk 2077. I also have the word Fadakin across my shoulder blades and the Arteris battle flag from the science fiction channel's Dune adaptation. I have a cavalry patch that is a clutch lift from Elephant Rider's album. I also have kitchen nerd tattoos, a chef's knife, and on the back of my triceps one side says 8, the other says 6, which is restaurant code for being out of something, the joke being you can only see it when my back is turned and I'm out. So long story short, I'm a nerd. I also have an appointment to get an Oblivion Gate on my kneecap in a couple of weeks. I don't know which one is the nerdiest, but they are all in the neighborhood. Story 81. Not me, but I knew a guy in university who had the head spider from John Carpenter's The Thing tattooed on his leg. It is easily one of the creepiest things in film history, and while it is a great horror film, having that tattoo seems a bit extreme. Story 82. I have a giant Herbert West Reanimator tattoo on my left calf and shin area, and the green ink in the skin glows under blacklight. I also have the phantasm spheres on my inner wrists. Story 83. I don't know if it's nerdy, but it's definitely silly. I have my childhood dog, Porkchop, surfing on a hot dog in a sea of macaroni and cheese while holding a taco, with a pizza sun setting behind her. Story 84. Fourier transform equation. My life has been spent studying chemistry, quantum mechanics, and electronics. This simple equation models much of the underlying physics. Story 85. I have a half-sleeve tattoo of squirrels dressed as the Sailor Scouts. It was my dream to get it, and I love it very much. Story 86. Haven't gotten one yet, but I have seriously considered getting Ctrl+Z, because I wish life had an undo button. Story 87. I have a sleeve dedicated to Adventure Time and a large thigh piece of Lerny, the bone hydra from Hades. I want to get something related to The Legend of Zelda, but haven't decided on an idea yet. Story 88. I only have 3, so probably my space tattoo. The Millennium Falcon fighting some TIE fighters, maybe a couple of X-Wings as well soon. So it will be that. Story 89. I have the Scrab symbol from Abe's Odyssey on my shoulder. I never got around to having the Paramite done on the other side. Story 90. I have the number 42 on my knuckle. I have a Silent Hill sleeve, a Bioshock sleeve, and a Dead Space leg sleeve. Story 91. I am currently in the process of getting my entire back tattooed with Ganon and Zelda depicted as dragons from The Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom. Story 92. I spin yarn as a hobby. I have a tattoo of 2 yarn bobbins, a couple of knitting needles, and a large ball of yarn arranged in the shape of a V-twin motorcycle engine. Story 93. Honestly, all of mine are nerdy. 3 correspond to shows for which I won awards. 4 of them are either song lyrics or references to songs, and 1 is a reference to an album cover. Story 94. I got a flash tattoo of the leaves of Lothlorien from The Lord of the Rings at a convention in Washington, D.C. I was at the convention to compete in jigsaw puzzling. Story 95. A quote from my favorite book series, written in a language from the book reads, "Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination." Story 96. Full forearm tattoo of Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal, and a full half sleeve of Silent Hill. 2 games I grew up playing all the time. Story 97. Giving my tattoo artist creative freedom to do a Cyrodiil tattoo on my right arm in July. He was my favorite character from my favorite video game universe. Story 98. I have Buck Rogers' battlecruiser on my back and a 1950s Rocket Mars on my shoulder. It makes all the mid-century science fiction toy collectors swoon when I walk around antique shows in a tank top. Story 99. I have A4 tattooed on my knees. A on the right and 4 on the left. I considered it my retirement tattoo after quitting my pursuit of graphic design as a career. Back in college until I started working, I always used an A4 size canvas whenever I worked on Photoshop or a drawing app. I was also inspired by Ninja from Die Antwoord, who has 3 tattooed on his knees. I met a Korean man on a trip to the beach who was the final influence that convinced me to get the tattoo. I wondered why he had Greek symbols tattooed on his arm. We started talking, and it turned out he was an engineer. The Greek symbols on his arm were a formula for computing the load-bearing capacity of a bridge. He inspired me to finally get a graphic design-related tattoo. Story 100. I have a Shy Guy from Mario, Jengar from Pokemon, and the Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda. I also have a complete high fantasy sleeve with a wizard, a dragon, and a character from a Brandon Sanderson book. I pretty much only have nerdy or nerd-adjacent tattoos. Story 101. Both my arms are full sleeves with anime and video games, so all of them. But maybe my weeping angel? Story 102. To overcomplicate a somewhat simple concept, I have the album cover of Destat's Bubblegum, a geometric line art cover featuring a sphere in the middle in a retro-futurism style. The ball has been replaced with a pokeball, keeping with the geometric line art look. One of the tracks from that album is called Pikachu, which has nothing to do with Pokemon. It's a play on Peek at You. Occasionally, in their live shows, they have the pokeball pop up on screen during the song. Out of respect for my favorite band, it's a reference to their album and a game franchise I love, which also happens to be another reference to the album. It's also tilted 90 degrees because I have two other tattoos all in a row up my arm, point to point. Story 103. One sleeve features various Kingdom Hearts books, the other features Final Fantasy. The one that I think takes the cake is the Cloud and Sephiroth duel. It is too iconic not to be included. However, I dislike portraits, and since I wanted to include Xenogears, the obvious solution was mech suit versions of Cloud and Sephiroth fighting underneath Meteor. Story 104. Ellie's tattoo from The Last of Us Part 2. So cliché and overused, but that game means so much to me. I had to get it. Story 105. The word Wistbetha in Scots Gaelic, directly translated as water of life or whiskey, is written in Pictish Ogham script. There is also an outline of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 Delta. Story 106. I got the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard Alligator. Yes, we are a cult. You can join if you want. It is free. Story 107. I have a tattoo of a glider with the North American numbering plan area codes I grew up in on the back of my neck. Story 108. My very first tattoo was the free Berkeley software distribution daemon, Chuck. Later, I got the Linux Penguin Tux to balance it out because I got tired of Berkeley software distribution and have since only been using Linux. Story 109. Vaporwave Hank Hill Marble Bust Tattoo. Full-color Nintendo 64 logo and PlayStation 1 logo. Sort of actuation from Berserk. The greedy monster from Monster. The alien corgi from Parasite. The samurai alien from Gantz. Pick one, I guess. Story 110. Well, I only have one, so I guess technically that one. But it's not nerdy. Story 111. I have not received it yet. A poker hand, 2-7 off-suited, an ode to the phrase just playing the hand I was dealt. Because that mindset is how I get through day-to-day life with epilepsy. It is the statistically worst starting hand in poker. Story 112. All of them technically, probably a tie between Goliath from Gargoyles and Chorus Armband from Legend of Korra. Story 113. Horse of Rohan, wife's name in Elvish script, a dragon, Captain America and Winter Soldier mashup shield, Wonder Woman crown, and Valkyrie wings. Also, a kitty cat with a skull balloon. Story 114. The 20-sided die on my bicep is nerdy, but what makes it even nerdier is when I flex and say, I am rolling for strength. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.